This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.
We promised you we're going to talk a little draft, of course, with Tony Pauline from ProFootballNetwork.com. Go to the website, great information there. He's got his final mock up there, and of course you can follow him on Twitter at Tony Pauline like I and so many others do. And follow Pro Football Network also on Twitter at PFN365. That's how you follow him on Twitter. T, good morning, my man. How you doing, baby?
I'm okay. How are you?
I am doing exceptional, my friend. All right, so I see in your final mock you've got Andrew Thomas. Now, is that a mock as in what you would take, or is that what you think the Dolphins will take? Because I've been saying for a couple weeks now that I don't think they're going to take a quarterback. I think they're going to take a position player. So what's this number 5 mean? Your pick, what they should do, or what they are going to do in your eyes?
Well, it's actually neither. It's what I'm being told from league sources they're going to do.
Aha.
And I kind of illustrated that at the top. It's not my idea.
Mm-hmm.
I will probably come out with something tomorrow, what I think should happen. And, of course, what I think should happen is not necessarily going to be what happens on Thursday. It's what's going to happen 2 or 3 years down the road. But everyone in the league seems to think that Miami's going to go offensive tackle at 5. And then maneuver to get Jordan Love with that second pick in round 1.
Your thoughts?
Now let me throw this caveat out.
Okay.
They also say that a lot of it, obviously, and I also said it in that write-up. Much of it depends on how the doctors, the Dolphin doctors, kind of feel on the medicals for Tua. You know what their opinions are, what they feel the impact of those. The way they read those medicals are. So it's not that Tua is out of the equation, but what I'm hearing is that the reports aren't that good. Miami's probably right now moving back from Tua and going to look offensive tackle with that first pick.
Do you agree with all of this? Because he has scared the hell out of me, Tony. Injury. I mean, you've been covering this, dude, longer than I have. Injury-prone players are injury-prone players at the next level. Do you believe that theory?
Yeah, of course. I mean, listen, I still grade Tua as my number 1 quarterback in this draft when you look at it from from a passing point of view and his overall body of work. I think he's a much better passer, downfield passer than Joe Burrow. Obviously, the 3 years at Alabama at a high level is more than Joe Burrow produced at LSU. Burrow's the flavor of the day. But, you know, I think I not only agree with you, but I think this whole coronavirus has really hurt a number of players, including Tua. Now, Tua was at the Combine. He was examined exhaustively by the teams at the Combine. The Combine takes place the end of February. There's also, the Combine recheck, which people don't talk about. And what happens to the Combine recheck, which is the first week of April, is players who are medically red flagged come back to Indianapolis, and the teams that are interested in those players will send their medical teams out there, their medical units out there, to recheck these players. Tua wasn't able to undergo that. I'm sure Miami would have tried to get Tua in for an official 30 visit to do more extensive tests on him closer to the draft. They weren't. It doesn't seem like they're able to do that unless they went undercover and they flew Stephen Ross's private jet out there to medically examine him, which I did not hear happen. So I think it's not just the injuries; it's the fact that I don't know that these teams were able to get up to date, last minute exams the way they wanted them, the way they would have wanted to do it.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. But in the end, even if, what I've said, even if he's healthy, he's proven to me he can't stay healthy. And that's my bigger problem. I don't care if you heal him up. No, my problem is he doesn't have the freakish talent that other guys do to stay healthy in that sport, because obviously he looks like he's like you and me, Tony, that if we actually took the field, we wouldn't last 60 seconds on those fields. And that's what you worry about. It's not whether he can get healthy, it's whether he can stay healthy.
I think I'll disagree. He does have freakish talent. Now, maybe he doesn't have the capacity to stay healthy. Maybe he doesn't have the capacity to
That's
get bigger and stronger like a lot of people do.
Yeah.
See, the thing is this is I agree with the undercurrent of your statement. I think that, in context, you're right. The only caveat I would throw in there is, Alabama plays 15 games a year, each and every year. And these are guys that are playing 15 games a year when they're 19, 20 years old. And Alabama has a history of this. Guys that have, because they're playing so long, because they're playing at such a long season, I should say, oftentimes they're on the field with injuries they shouldn't be on the field with. And in the case of Tua, why was he on the field? At the end of that first half, against Mississippi State, when they were at that point in time winning by 28 points? Why keep him out there when he had, some nicks and bruises? So I understand when you look at it and you look at the history, this happens all too often to Alabama players. So, you don't know. I can see arguments on both sides. I think what's eventually going to happen is the reward for Tua is going to outweigh the risk. And at some point in time, the team's going to say, we're going to roll the dice because this guy's such a phenomenal quarterback. We'll figure out ways, to get him stronger, keep him healthy. It's another level in the NFL. And we'll just take that risk. I understand the trepidation that you have. I absolutely understand it, which is why people in the league are telling me, it's going to be very likely a position player, an offensive tackle with that fifth selection.
My brother, and what you're hearing, you got Tua tumbling all the way down to 12 to the Las Vegas Raiders in your mock.
I mean, the only other team that you could really say would take Tua would be the Jacksonville Jaguars at 9. There's really no other team except for the Chargers, and I think that they like Justin Herbert. After the Dolphins and the Chargers, there's really no other team that, except the Jaguars, that would take a quarterback.
Right. No, you're right. I'm definitely with you there. Now, Andrew Thomas, you have him as what? Your number 1 tackle?
I have him as my number 2 tackle after Tristan Wirfs, but he's just slightly behind Tristan Wirfs. I've always liked Andrew Thomas. I've always touted him. I think Tristan Wirfs' combine workout kind of took it to another level for me, looking at Tristan Wirfs. I think Tristan Wirfs is a little bit more NFL ready than Andrew Thomas, but Andrew Thomas has got a tremendous amount of upside, and he's a guy who's going to be an outstanding NFL tackle in time.
So you're hearing 18 Miami uses to move up to try to get Jordan Love, and again, because you said that you got Tua, let's say, going to the Raiders, Love could go to the Raiders. So do you have Miami trying to jump ahead of the Raiders at 12 somewhere, like let's say number 9 with Jacksonville or somebody else, or number 7 with Carolina?
I don't think they're going to have to move up that high. I mean, Cleveland it wants to move down, or would like to move down. I really don't think that if they want to maneuver for Jordan Love, I don't think they're going to have to really move up all that far. Okay. They've liked Jordan Love, as I said in a piece, and in fact, as I've said the last 2 years. The Dolphins have been high on Jordan Love for about 2.5 years now. They were scouting him back in the days when Mike Tannenbaum was in charge, when Chris Greer was still involved in the organization. So there is an affinity for Jordan Love from the Dolphins organization. They may have to maneuver. I don't think they'd have to make a huge jump up to number 9 or into the top 10 to get Jordan Love.
Let me ask you something, and we're talking with Tony Pauline, of course, from Pro Football Network. A little off the beaten path type question. With McKenzie and Allen joining Greer, what influences do you expect to have in the draft from those guys?
It remains to be seen, and this is just such a different year. With the war rooms, the way they're set up. I mean, it's not a situation in the past where, even though they'll be on Skype and they'll be talking to those guys, they're not going to be in the room to give, instantaneous opinions or evaluations. It should be a positive But I think, because of the setup specifically of the war rooms, the way they're going to be, it's going to be an interesting dynamic, and I don't know that you can draw any definite opinion at this point in time.
All right, running back. Miami's going to need one. I love the Howard pick as a number 2 guy, but they're going to need that dynamic guy. And Tony, do they go at 26? Do they wait to 39? Swift, Taylor, Dobbins, Clyde from LSU, all those guys. How do you view those guys? Where are they going to go? What are you hearing?
I'm told that the guy they like at 26 is another tackle, Isaiah Wilson. And, you can have all the best running backs in the world. If you don't have an offensive line, forget about it. I could see DeAndre Swift being selected with that 26th pick. I think it is a good fit. I think he's a guy that does a lot of things very, very well. But I think they'd rather just bolster their offensive line, especially if they're going to look for a quarterback with their needed offensive line, especially offensive tackle, I should say. Jonathan Taylor in round 2 would be an interesting pick. I think it's going to be, if they don't take a running back in round 1, I think that top of round 2 pick is going to be a choice between either a running back or the best edge rusher. A guy like Josh Uche's there, who's moving up draft boards, who was a tremendous edge rusher at Michigan as a junior, was used more as sort of a traditional linebacker last year. I think that's a guy they would consider. So I think when it comes to round 2, you're looking at either a running back. If DeAndre Swift is there, I don't think he's going to be there. If Jonathan Taylor is there, Wisconsin, I think he'll be there, or the best edge rusher if there's a top edge rusher available to them.
I think they're going to go for a wide receiver returner. Okay, and I know you've talked about Mims, one of the guys you like. Where would they go for that? Because they've got multiple picks in some of the middle rounds. I don't think that they would go for it in the first or second rounds, right? Does third, fourth round look to you like an area where you could get a good wide receiver / returner?
If a guy like Lynn Bowden Jr. of Kentucky, former quarterback, turned the receiver, has been used as a return specialist, also runs reverses. If he's there in round 3 for them, a phenomenal athlete. I think that's somebody they would consider. Devin Duvernay, again, in round 3, a speedster, a guy who played better than Colin Johnson this season, even though coming into the year, Colin Johnson was graded as a first-round pick. Devin Duvernay was graded as a 6th-round pick somewhere in round 3. Van Jefferson, I don't know if he makes it.
How's the foot injury?
Round 4.
How's the foot injury with him? The foot injury that he had, because I love that kid, man. We saw him, what was it, at the Senior Bowl, right? I think he was at the
Senior Bowl. He was a good player for the Gators. He really was a good player for Mississippi before he transferred to the Gators. So he's been a solid player all the way through. Again, if he's there in round 4, I think that fits the need. If you're looking for, a later round guy, someone who's more of a developmental guy, talking about 6th-round area, Joe Reed of Virginia is someone I think they got to consider.
Okay.
Or they would consider.
All right, good stuff. Tony Pauline, of course, from Pro Football Network, joining us here. You can follow him on Twitter at Tony Pauline. Tony, linebacker, Simmons at 5. He seems like a Flores-type player because he plays 4,000 positions. How realistic is it? What are you hearing? Because, again, he kind of seems like a scheme fit. I'd rather have the lineman. I'm with you. I'm actually a Wirfs guy, too. But you tell me, Simmons at 5, would that be out of line for you?
No, because of who the head coach is. I think Simmons has got great upside, but I also think he's a guy that, I don't know that he's a plug-and-play type of defender. I think he's the type of guy that, maybe some bumps in the road before he's NFL ready. Simmons, I've watched him since he was a redshirt freshman. When he played safety, I had him highly graded since his redshirt freshman season. And I've seen on film, he makes a lot of plays due to his sensational athleticism. Instincts, are so-so. They're not the greatest in the world. I think, again, let's go back to what I said about the way the war rooms are constructed, going to be constructed the next 3 days. It's going to be different. And I know that there are a lot of general managers that are not all that unhappy with the way the war room is constructed because they're going to be in a room by themselves making the final choice as opposed to being in a war room with 20 or 30 guys and having the head coach bark in their ear as to the player that they want. We got to take this player. We got to take player XYZ. When the general manager knows that player ABC is the better player, better prospect, and is a better fit for the team. So again, could I see it? Yes, but the way the war rooms are shaping up, you're not going to have the situation there where the coach is going to be, really pushing hard for the player that he wants. It's going to be a different dynamic.
All right, so if you don't get Isaiah Simmons, a guy that I freaking love is Zach Bond. Does he fit what they do here? Because I think that would be another guy, and where does he go?
Yeah, Zach Bond, in my opinion, he's solid, but he's not spectacular. Okay. I don't think he's a first-round pick. I think he's a guy that's going to go top of round 2. The thing with Zach Bond is this, and I watched him a lot the past 2 years. I thought he was out of place at 3-4 outside linebacker at Wisconsin because he was not big enough really to be a pass rusher. He did a solid job of it at Wisconsin, but there were also times where he got just washed from the action because he doesn't have the strength at the point of attack. Now, he got flagged for the diluted positive test at the combine. Mm-hmm. As I wrote, if you read it on Pro Football Network, there were a lot of guys that got flagged for diluted tests because of the fact that they were, and Zach Bond said this in his letter, and this is what I was privy to weeks ago. They were chugging a lot of water before they stepped on the scale to add extra weight, to get their weight up. And then the urine tests were done right after they weighed in, so you got a lot of diluted tests. My point being is this, is Zach Bond is very athletic. He's a guy that's got a high upside. He's also someone that struggled during coverage drills at the Senior Bowl. So I think he's a work in progress. I just don't think – I think he's should be more of your traditional 4-3 weak side type linebacker rather than a guy that's going to play in a 3-4 or be used up the field a lot. And even as a 4-3 linebacker, he needs to work on his cover skills.
Tony, give me another guy at the linebacker spot that we know Kyle Van Noy is going to play his 29th and 30th year, as in his birthday, his years here. And then 31 and 32 are the back end of that contract, which they can get out of it after the second year. So maybe they're looking at Van Noy to groom somebody. Some of us think that Van Ginkel, that was already here, he showed a little flashes last year. He's a late-round pick. Is there another guy out there at that backer position that when you look at Kyle Van Noy, he's clearly going to be the leader of this defense? But if he had to mold somebody for himself, who is that guy that you see out there at the linebacker spot in this draft?
It's really not a deep year at linebacker. If you're looking for somebody, say in the third round, if he falls into the third round, Logan Wilson of Wyoming, I think, is really a guy who plays with his hair on fire. He plays all out all the time. Malik Harrison's more of an inside type guy in the third round. Other guys, Terrell Lewis, as I said, I said yesterday, or Monday, I should say, has been medically red flagged. Here's an interesting name to keep an eye on. Willie Gay of Mississippi State, third-round area. There are a lot of teams that have a second-round grade on Willie Gay. 6'1", 243 pounds, ran a 4.46 at the combine. Had some struggles with suspensions and didn't play a full season last year, but teams love his upside. If you're looking for a last-day steal, Francis Bernard of Utah, who doesn't have eye-popping size speed numbers, 6'1.5" 235 pounds, ran in the 4.8 at the combine. He's just a tremendous player. He's a tremendous football player from Utah. Actually started his college career at BYU, plays much more athletic, a guy that's really a three-down guy. You can drop him into coverage if you need to on 3rd and 6, or you can send him up the field on the blitz. I think he's going to be a real steal in the last day of the draft.
What do you think of Alex Highsmith? We talked a little bit about him back at the East West Shrine from Charlotte.
Like him a lot. I like him as a 4th-round pick, but I think he's more of a 3-4 rush linebacker, more of an edge rusher than a guy that you're going to ask to drop off the line and play in space. I think he's got that ability. I think he's athletic enough, and he's someone that some people say he could slide into the second day of the draft. I don't see it, but I think once the day 3 of the draft opens up, I think Highsmith is going to quickly come off the board. I like his game a lot.
All right. Before I let you go, Tony, I got to ask you. We've talked tackle. We've talked quarterback. We got to talk guard here, guard center. If Miami is going to use a pick, which I really believe they're going to use something on the interior of that line, whether it's center or guard, I don't think it'll be the first couple of picks. Maybe it's that 26. Maybe it's something the 2nd or 3rd rounds. Give us a couple guys that you like, either guard or center, that you really have grown to like throughout this process.
Well, the top guard center prospect is Matt Hennessy of Temple. The top center is Cesar Ruiz, but the top guard center prospect is Matt Hennessy. The thing with Matt Hennessy is it's probably not really. You can't justify taking him off the board into the bottom half of round 2. So if he's there at the top half of round 3, I think Miami would jump all over because he fits that style where he can play center or guard. It is not a good guard class at all. I mean, your first guard, and you may have just one guard come off the board in day 2 of the draft, and that's John Simpson. And after that, you got guys like Logan Stenberg, Shane Lemieux, and their 3rd-day picks. I'll give you 2 late.
How weird is that, right? Isn't that weird?
I know. This is a good year to get a center if you want to. I think the wild card at the center position is Tyler Biadasz of Wisconsin, a guy who has played like a first-round pick, but I'm hearing he's got medical red flags, knee and hip, and is going to drop. I still have him as a 2nd, 3rd-round selection. I'm told he could fall out of the 2nd day altogether. I'll give you 2 late-round guys that fit that center-guard combination. Darrell Williams of Mississippi State, 6'2.5", 306 pounds, and a guy that we saw play in the postseason at both the Shrine Game and the Senior Bowl. He was a tackle at Oregon, Calvin Throckmorton.
Oh, yeah.
6'5", 317 pounds, really not a good athlete, but a smart, tough, intelligent blocker who's got position versatility, really doesn't have scheme versatility, and someone who played tackle at Oregon, played center at Oregon, played guard in the postseason at the Shrine Game, and did a real good job of it. Doesn't have a high upside, but he's got a polished game, and you know what you're getting with him. He's probably going to go 6th-round area, and he fits that mold of someone who can play center or guard.
Are you a Cushenberry guy?
Not at all.
Okay. Why?
I think he's marginally athletic. I think he doesn't have a high upside. I think when you compare him to the top centers, whether it be Ruiz, whether it be Hennessy, whether it be a healthy Biadasz, whether it be Keith Ishmael of San Diego State, I think he's not as athletic as those guys. I don't think he moves as well on his feet. I don't think he's got the same sort of upside as the players I just mentioned.
All right, Tony Pauline, of course, from Pro Football Network. Follow him on Twitter at Tony Pauline. And, of course, follow the Pro Football Network website on Twitter also at PFN365. Tony, the Dolphins have 14 picks. They could end up with more picks in this draft. They could end up with less if they trade up. LSU is going to get a ton of people drafted. The question is, will Miami have more draft picks or will LSU have more draft picks? Who wins?
Yeah, that's a good one. And LSU usually has about 10, 11 guys.
I got 15 maybe drafted when I looked at
selected.
guys.
Give me a second here. Let me pull up my LSU. 1, 2, 2, 3, 4.
Dude, I think it's like 14 or 15, the number I came up with. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's a question that any draft geek loves that question.
You definitely struck a nerve here.
Everybody loves that question that follows the draft because they're like, wow.
I've got 13 guys from LSU with draftable grades.
Okay. There you go. So it's going to be interesting. Going to be interesting. There you go. All right, T, you are the best, my brother. Hey, what are you guys doing on Pro Football Network today and tomorrow so our listeners can go check you out, my friend?
Well, we posted a 2-round mock that you talked about today. Literally for the past week or 2 weeks, I've had a news and rumors column that's been ahead of the curve on a lot of stuff that is being talked about. We're going to have a live draft day blog tomorrow where we're going to have analysis of the picks as they're made. We'll have any news. And I'll tell you, I've held back some news for tomorrow's draft day blog, which is, I believe, is going to go up about either 9 a.m. or 12 noon. I don't know. And some of it, I think, is going to shock a lot of people, especially it has to do with the upcoming 2020 NFL season. So you're running to stay tuned for that.
There you go. Always a great read. He works his ass off and always great information. That's Tony Pauline from ProFootballNetwork.com. Tony, you're a stud, my brother. Enjoy the day and enjoy the draft this weekend.
Same to you. Thanks for having me. We'll speak soon.
Always my pleasure. Thank you, Tony. Appreciate you. There you go. Tony Pauline, man. You know, you don't get that kind of hardcore draft talk anywhere in South Florida, baby. Love it. That is good stuff.